The hotel room is already booked. I'll make sure to thank you plenty. She said this to me while pressing her glossy lips against the beer mug. It was supposed to be a simple thank you dinner at a restaurant, but her words sent the blood in my body rushing. And my mind started wandering to inappropriate places. I was desperately trying to regain my composure and decline when it happened. With graceful fingers, she undid 2 buttons on her blouse and then reached out toward my dress shirt with a slight smirk. My mind and body had already given in to her. My name is Eric. I work in the sales department of a major trading company. While most of the team is out on sales calls, the quiet hum of the phone echoed through the office, and the new temp handled it. Sean, a call for you. Oh wait, he's out on a call right now. Hey, you. I told you this client is for Eric. Eric, you have a call. I gave my usual practice nod and picked up the phone. Since the calls I receive are pretty much predictable, no one even bothers explaining who the caller is anymore. That's right, I'm what you would call a desk warmer. I brushed off the situation, knowing it's something that always happens when new hires join, and quietly got back to work. Before I knew it, lunchtime had arrived, and a few people returned from their sales calls. The atmosphere in the office always lit up when he came back. I'm back. Oh, here's something sweet for you guys. It must be tough being new. Treat yourselves and keep supporting us, okay? Ah, yes. Thank you, Sean. He gave the new girl a friendly smile and went back to his desk. As usual, he was immediately the center of attention. In no time, the office was filled with laughter. I couldn't help but marvel at his ability to create such an atmosphere. Tall, with a trendy haircut and a well-kept face, plus a warm personality and top sales results. He is, without question, the complete opposite of me. Even though I knew that perfectly well, for some reason, I felt it more deeply that day. Maybe it was a sign that today was going to be different. The lunch break had just ended, and I was getting back to work. Suddenly, I was called from behind. That alone was rare, but when I turned around, the person speaking was even more unexpected. Eric, good work. I picked up some coffee. Here, this is for you. Ha! The person who spoke to me was Rachel, also from the sales department. Rachel, a stunning black-haired beauty often referred to as the Madonna of sales, is a top performer constantly competing for first place. Someone like her giving me a drink felt like it had to be some kind of mistake. Rachel, I'm Eric. Sean is over there. I know that. Eric, you're always stuck doing desk work. You must be tired, right? So, I brought this for you. With that, she smiled and walked away. Sure, I knew someone like Rachel wouldn't make a mistake like that, but I couldn't figure out her intentions for giving me this coffee. As I stared at the can, still unsure what to do, a coworker called out to me. Hey, Eric, what the hell is going on between you and Rachel? Nothing. She just gave me coffee. My coworker, wearing the same bewildered expression as me, smirked and continued. Well, it's probably just on a whim. I mean, it'd make sense if it were Sean, but why would she have any connection with a desk warmer like you? Must be tough for you. Then again, maybe there's no comparison to begin with. He left the office laughing heartily. I knew he didn't mean any harm. That's just how things worked in this department. The truth is, Sean and I, Eric, are identical twins. It's not like we're hiding it, but with Sean being outgoing, popular, and always the center of attention while I'm quiet, reserved, and constantly keeping to myself, no one ever connects the dots. And I was perfectly fine with that. But that routine began to crumble. Ever since that day when Rachel brought me coffee, she had been stopping by my desk every single day. She began stopping by my desk during lunch breaks and whenever she found an opportunity. It didn't take long for the department to start buzzing about how Rachel, the office beauty, and I, the guy stuck in the corner, suddenly started talking. I hated the attention, But what bothered me more was not understanding why Rachel was suddenly so interested in me. The only logical explanation I could think of was that she wanted to get closer to Sean through me. But, of course, there was no way I could ask her that, and for about a week, I endured an increasingly uncomfortable existence. That day, most of the team was out on sales calls again. Even the internal staff were helping with meetings, so I was automatically left as the office caretaker. I was enjoying a rare moment of normalcy. That's when I heard footsteps heading my way. I didn't even need to turn around. I knew those footsteps too well. Eric. Sean? What's up? As expected, it was my older brother, Sean. He was holding some documents and glaring at me with a sour expression. Then, he smacked the papers in front of my face and said, "Your work's getting sloppy lately. Look at this, typos here and here." I caught it this time, so we avoided embarrassment, but seriously. Get it together. Sorry. I must have been rushing a bit. Hearing my excuse, Sean leaned in, staring straight into my face, and muttered in a low, detached voice. "If your sloppy work screws up my sales, it'll be a problem, won't it? You're lucky you get to sit here in your little desk job. So don't mess up again." He tossed the documents onto my desk like they were nothing and walked out of the office. Being the sales department's ace, Sean managed to book meeting after meeting with clients. I was the one who created all the presentation materials for him. Since it was all handled via email, very few people knew this arrangement existed. I need to be more careful next time. The moment the words slipped out of my mouth, another face suddenly appeared right in front of me. I knew it. The secret to Sean's top performance was you, wasn't it? Rachel? I froze, startled to see Rachel's flawless face grinning mischievously just inches away from me, leaning over my computer screen. My mind raced to figure out how to explain what she might have overheard. But before I could say anything, Rachel spoke again, her tone filled with certainty. I knew it was suspicious for Sean to handle so many accounts on his own. It's physically impossible to create such perfectly tailored presentation materials. She plopped into the chair next to me, folding her arms like a detective closing in on their suspect. I had a hunch you were involved, so I kept an eye out, and I was right. I lowered my head, silently waiting for her next words. I had suspected Rachel's sudden attention toward me had something to do with Sean, but I still couldn't guess what her endgame was. Then she leaned in close and whispered something completely unexpected into my ear. Should I spill the beans? Everyone thinks Sean does it all by himself, you know. He. The moment those words hit me, my body reacted instinctively. I dropped straight to my knees on the floor in a full-blown bow. Wait. Eric? Stop that. Please. Don't say anything. I'm doing this all on my own. Rachel slid off her chair and sat cross-legged on the floor in front of me. She grabbed my face and forced me to look up. Then, staring straight into my eyes, they slowly began to move their lips. I won't tell anyone. But this is a deal. I'll keep quiet about you too, and in exchange, you'll help me with my work, too. What? Guided by Rachel's extended hand, I let her lead me to a quieter spot. What do you mean by helping you with your work? Exactly what it sounds like. I want you to help with my documents. It's just for brushing up the final versions, though. How about it? If you'll keep this quiet, I'll do whatever you need. Sitting on the bench next to the vending machine, I answered without looking at her. I could tell that Rachel, sitting next to me, kept her gaze fixed on me the entire time. I don't get it. Why go this far? You're twins, but you're always in Sean's shadow. I'm fine with that. When I glanced at her, Rachel's face showed nothing but confusion. I turned to face her, forcing a small smile. Have you noticed how Sean's right hand seems stiff sometimes? Yeah, I think he mentioned something about it at a company dinner. It's my fault. That's why I owe it to him to do whatever I can. Every time I looked at my brother, I couldn't forget. Instead of letting her pry, I decided it was better to tell her. Staring out the window, I began my story. It happened when we were still in elementary school. We were well known in our hometown. A pair of identical twins often mistaken for one another. Our personalities were complete opposites, but I adored my big brother. That summer day during vacation, despite his love for playing outside, Sean had come to the library with me, knowing I preferred reading. "Hey, Eric, let's play soccer for a change. Everyone's playing on the school field today. Come on, let's go. Just go by yourself." "I'm not good at it, and I'm not even friends with them." "Ha ha. So that's what you're worried about? You make friends by playing together. Come on, let's go." "Leave it to your big brother." He grabbed my arm and tried to drag me along, but I got frustrated and pulled away. I forgot we were in the library and shouted, "Leave me alone. Just go play by yourself." "Fine, whatever. Do what you want." "I don't care." With that, Sean stormed out. Deep down, I actually wanted to play soccer with everyone. But when he said that, it felt like he was rejecting me, and I snapped. Suddenly alone, the library felt unbearably empty. I imagined Sean laughing and playing soccer, and I nearly cried. Stubbornly, I tried to convince myself I was fine on my own. I climbed onto a ladder and stood on my tiptoes to reach a book that was out of a child's reach. Just as my fingers finally touched the book, I let my guard down for a moment. The ceiling flashed across my vision, and with a loud crash, a sharp pain shot through my back. I had slipped and fallen off the stepladder. It was only a few steps high, but it turned into a major accident. At first, I couldn't think of anything but the pain. But I realized something felt strange. I hadn't hit the floor directly. When I opened my eyes, my mind went blank. "Eric, you're not hurt, right?" Underneath me on the ladder was my big brother. We were rescued by the staff who rushed over and taken to the hospital. I was hospitalized overnight just as a precaution, but Sean had shielded me from the fall. His awkward position causing a severe fracture in his right arm. He needed long-term care. "Stop crying, Eric. Broken bones heal, you know? Once I'm out of here, let's play soccer together again." "Sorry." "I'm so sorry, big brother." From that day on, I visited Sean every single day in the hospital. I wished for nothing but his recovery as he welcomed me each time with a smile. I promised myself that once he came back, I would stop being stubborn and make amends. But one day, while visiting, I overheard something that changed my world forever. I heard Sean might have some lingering aftereffects. Apparently, he got caught in the accident because he went to pick up Eric. Poor boy. His kindness ended up backfiring on him. At least his head wasn't hit. If it had been, the situation could have been much worse. They probably thought they were whispering, but those words lodged themselves in my mind like splinters. He got caught in the accident because he came for me. After effects. If things had gone even slightly differently, Sean might not be here at all. It was my fault. It was all because I had fought with him that day. Sean ended up with some lingering stiffness in his arm, though it didn't interfere with his daily life. From that day forward, I resolved to do anything for him. Sean had struggled a bit with academics, so I made sure to support him in every way possible. When I joined the same company as him, it was because I wanted to help him. After what I'd nearly cost him, it was my duty to make up for it. Eric. Sorry for rambling. Just send me the details for the documents by email. I'll handle it. I turned my back on Rachel, who looked like she still had something to say, and returned to the office, already organizing my tasks in my head. Nearly a month had passed since I started helping Rachel with her work. Of course, no one could know about it, so we communicated strictly by email, with no chit-chat and no unnecessary interactions. Rachel, you're doing great this month. You might even take the top spot. Thank you, Robert. I'll do my best to beat Sean. The office buzzed with excitement at Rachel's words. I sighed internally, knowing this situation had gotten a little too complicated. Just then, an email popped up on my screen. What? I read the message twice to make sure I wasn't seeing things. Are you free tonight? I want to thank you, so how about grabbing a drink? Confused, I glanced over at Rachel, only to find her smiling knowingly as our eyes locked. It felt like she had anticipated my reaction perfectly. I had no way of turning her down. Within seconds, she sent me a URL for the restaurant, and after work, I reluctantly headed there with heavy steps. No matter the circumstances of how we got to this point, the idea of being alone with someone as beautiful as Rachel made me incredibly nervous. When I arrived, Rachel was already waving at me enthusiastically. Rachel, you don't have to thank me. What are you standing around for? Sit. You're good with beer, right? Already a bit tipsy, Rachel was the complete opposite of the composed career woman she usually was. Her uninhibited cuteness attracted a fair share of attention in the open-plan restaurant. I worried about how long she'd been there on her own, but I couldn't resist her energy and began drinking along with her. Hey, guess what? Robert complimented me today. I saw. He said you might even take the top spot this month. The moment I said that, Rachel slammed her beer mug onto the table and leaned in close to me. Your brother Sean is still way ahead, though. Wait, are you slacking on my work or something? No way. That would be more work for me. I quickly reassured her, and she smiled mischievously before sitting back down. Just kidding. Your work's been amazing. Really, thank you, Eric. Her sudden gratitude caught me off guard. Before I could even think of a response, Rachel slammed her mug down again and continued. Damn it. I'm working my butt off, you know? I'm finally in sight of the top spot, and Sean's still ahead. Watching her down her beer in one go, I remembered something that had puzzled me for a while. Rachel was not just a beautiful and capable top performer. There was another reason people referred to her as a high-class flower. She was the daughter of the CEO of our company's largest shareholder. You could say she didn't have to work that hard if she didn't want to. So, I couldn't quite understand why she was so determined to reach the top. Thinking I might finally be able to ask Rachel now, I gathered my courage and asked her, Rachel, why do you want to be at the top? Everyone already knows how hard you work. The cheerful expression Rachel had earlier suddenly disappeared, and she turned away, resting her elbow on the table. I panicked and was about to change the subject when her lips moved. Because if I lose, it's over. What? People treat me like some kind of princess, but my family's not like that. Getting top scores on tests is expected, excelling in sports is expected. Effort doesn't matter. I have to win. That's it. When she said that, Rachel, who had been staring at the wall, turned to face me. Winning at everything is the reason I exist. She looked at me with a sad smile, locking her eyes onto mine. I couldn't find the words to respond. But Rachel just kept looking at me. Unable to bear it, I averted my gaze. That's when she spoke again. Let's drop this conversation. I'd rather talk about thanking you. Huh? No, you really don't have to. Not letting me escape, she gently grabbed my hand, intertwining her fingers with mine as she leaned closer. I've already booked a hotel room. I'm going to thank you properly. She said it while brushing her lips against the rim of her beer mug. I had been brought to this restaurant as a gesture of gratitude, but her words sent my blood rushing and wild thoughts racing through my mind. Just as I was struggling to regain control of my senses and planning to refuse, it happened. She let go of my hand, unbuttoned 2 buttons of her blouse with her graceful fingers, and then, with a slight smirk, reached toward my dress shirt. By that point, my mind and body were already at her mercy. But suddenly, she yanked on my tie, pulling my face inches from hers. Then, in a low, sultry voice, she whispered into my ear, "Did your heart race?" Before I could react, she let go of my tie and, stifling a laugh, called for another beer. What was that all about? The hotel room thing is true. So don't worry about the last train. Drink all you want. Feeling utterly deflated, I watched as Rachel cheerfully resumed drinking. There wasn't a trace of the pressure or confinement she'd mentioned earlier on her face now. "Rachel, you're already at the top." I said it without thinking. Hoping she hadn't heard me, I glanced her way and saw her frozen mid-sip, still holding her beer mug. "Ah, sorry. I never told you this, but when I saw the materials you sent over, I thought it all along. You're someone who considers the other person's perspective." "What do you mean?" "All I did was dig into the numbers a little. But you, without relying on templates, make presentations tailored to the other party's needs. I think things like that really show someone's character." "Rachel, you're an amazing saleswoman." Rachel, who had seemed frozen, suddenly lowered her head, her shoulders trembling slightly. "But I'm not at the top. I make materials for the top-performing presentations, so believe me when I say you're incredible." She slowly looked up at me, a single tear tracing down her cheek. With a beautiful, delicate smile, she said in a barely audible voice, "Such an idiot." I couldn't tell whether she meant me or herself. Several hours later, I was carrying Rachel through the quiet night streets toward the hotel. Though she seemed fine at first, it was clear the alcohol had completely hit her. She could barely walk straight. Rachel, booking that hotel really was the right call. "We're almost there, okay?" As I said that, Rachel suddenly spun around to stand directly in front of me. She looked like she was about to scold me, but instead threw her arms around me in a tight embrace. "Rachel!" My mind couldn't keep up with the fast pace of my heartbeat, and I had no idea what to do. Rachel blinked, clearly surprised, then gave a small, shaky smile. "You should praise me more. Compliment me." Her words carried a hint of relief, which made my chest tighten. I slowly patted her head several times and, bringing my lips close to her ear, whispered, "You've done so well all on your own, Rachel." The moment her arms wrapped tightly around my back, I found myself embracing her with my whole body as well. A few days later, the sales department was buzzing from the moment the morning began. The reason was that Henry, our manager, had suddenly announced a business trip for the next day. Apparently, it was for a major client, so my brother, the department's ace, and Rachel were chosen. When the top-performing ladies' man and the elegant daughter of an executive team up, it's no wonder the office started buzzing. As for me, I just watched the situation unfold. For some reason, I didn't want to think about my brother and Rachel going on a trip together. So I quickly buried myself in work. That's when it happened. A loud voice suddenly broke through the chatter. It was my brother. "Ah, Henry. I don't think I can make it tomorrow. I just received a formal appointment email from our previous client. We worked pretty hard to land this account, and I understand how important it is to them." I see. Then I'll have to figure out who else to send." As the office began to buzz with murmurs, my brother stirred things up even more. "How about Eric?" "What?" "Ha!" All at once, everyone's eyes turned to me. I had no idea what was going on. I mouthed a silent protest to my brother for the first time, but he didn't care in the slightest. Instead, he launched into what felt like a full-blown speech directed at everyone. The main part of the sales pitch can be handled by Rachel without any issues. What really matters is showing how serious we are. And my little brother here has an unmatched aura of sincerity. He's perfect as Rachel's bodyguard. To me, it sounded like he was just spewing a bunch of nonsense, but my brother's impressive talking skills worked their magic. and Henry ended up giving the okay. I immediately tried to confront my brother, but he slipped out of the office before I could catch him. Rachel didn't say anything in particular. And just like that, I found myself headed for a business trip with Rachel, something I never would have imagined. That night, I considered calling my brother, but I didn't want to question his decision. Besides, part of me was excited by the unusual prospect of going on a trip with Rachel. In the end, I decided against it. The next morning, I met up with Rachel at the station. "Good morning, Rachel." "Ha? Wait, Eric? What happened to you? Does it look weird?" I figured since it's a business trip, I should style my hair to look a bit more professional. Rachel stared at me like she was trying to burn a hole through my face. Then, she grabbed my hand tightly and said, "Don't you ever look like that at work. People will realize you're actually handsome." While I stood there in stunned silence, Rachel quickly headed toward the ticket gate. Suddenly aware of the stares around me, I hurried to follow her. Sitting side by side on the bullet train, heading off on a business trip together, it was something I never could have imagined. Still not used to the situation, I felt flustered, but Rachel sat there with a serious expression on her face the whole time. "Rachel, are you okay? So, about today's client." Her words made me tense up a little. I had heard it was an important client, but no one had told me anything beyond that. Even if I was filling in for my brother at the last minute, going in completely unprepared was unthinkable. I waited for Rachel to continue. What she said next completely caught me off guard. "Today's client is my father." "What?" To be honest, I don't know why he called me. Originally, it was just supposed to be me, but since it's work, they assigned someone to come along. "Eric, I'm sorry. You might end up in an awkward situation." Rachel's strained relationship with her father was probably still as she had described before. Her expression was a mix of anxiety and fear. In an effort to reassure her, I clenched my fist in an awkward gesture of confidence and said firmly, "Are you worried about me being your bodyguard?" When I said that with a smile, Rachel let out a soft chuckle and, with a smile of her own, replied, "Looking forward to it." About 2 hours later, we arrived at Stevenson Holdings. Everyone we passed bowed deeply to Rachel. Following that flow, we were ushered into the reception room. I had no idea what was about to happen. But seeing how tense Rachel was, I had made up my mind to protect her no matter what. Then, the heavy door opened, and a sharp-eyed man with a commanding presence entered. It was Mr. Stevenson. He glanced at us briefly, motioning for us to sit down just as we were about to stand. Under his overwhelming aura, Rachel completely froze. "Thank you for coming all this way today. Wasn't it a hassle to babysit my daughter?" "Sean, was it?" I snapped back to my senses. I knew I had to get a grip and steady myself. "No, not at all. Thank you for taking the time to meet with us. And I apologize, but Sean, whom you were expecting, fell ill suddenly. I'm here in his place. My name is Eric. I'm very sorry for not notifying you in time." "Oh? Is that so? Well, it doesn't really matter." "Eric, then." "Yes." Mr. Stevenson looked briefly at Rachel before turning his words toward me. "What do you think of Rachel? Do you believe she's someone fit to stand at the top?" I widened my eyes at the completely unexpected question. This wasn't a business meeting at all. Mr. Stevenson was evaluating Rachel to see if she was worthy of being his daughter. Rachel kept her head down. As I struggled to find the right words, Mr. Stevenson shot me a sharp look. Then, suddenly, he broke into a laugh and began speaking. "Ha ha. No need to take it so seriously. Just tell me her results. I just want to hear what you've observed." "It's simple." "Her sales performance, you mean? What else?" "That's all there is." Well, I already have a general idea of her capabilities. With his arms crossed, Mr. Stevenson applied even more pressure. I hesitated for a moment, wondering what the right answer could be. My words could make things worse between the two of them. But I couldn't let this man continue to judge his daughter solely by her performance. Rachel's sales performance is second in her division. Ha! So she really is a hopeless daughter, unfit to lead. Are you aware of her client satisfaction rates, Mr. Stevenson? Satisfaction rates? Why would I care about that? Honestly, she was stubborn enough to leave here and insist on gaining experience at another company. And yet, her incompetence hasn't changed. You're wrong. I couldn't stop myself from shouting. Both Mr. Stevenson and Rachel, who had been staring at the floor, looked up in surprise. It had been a long time since I'd raised my voice like that. But I couldn't let his words go unchallenged. Rachel is responsible for most of the Stevenson Holdings subsidiaries. I normally work internally, so I've been constantly hearing feedback from clients. There's no one who works harder for their clients than Rachel. If something comes up, she's there immediately. If feedback arises, she finds ways to improve and propose better ideas. I've quantified these qualities into a satisfaction index, and Rachel has been at the top all along. Before I realized it, I had stood up, slamming my hand on the desk as I shouted. It wasn't until I noticed Mr. Stevenson and Rachel staring at me in shock that I realized how far I'd gone. I'm sorry. I got a little too carried away, and my words were all over the place. But what I'm trying to say is that Rachel understands the importance of human connections better than anyone else. She's an invaluable asset. Eric. Rachel whispered my name in a small voice, her eyes red. I turned to look at her and offered a small smile. After a brief silence, Mr. Stevenson uncrossed his legs and slowly opened his mouth. By the way, who's in first place for grades? That would be Sean. He's my older brother. Are you saying Rachel is better than your brother? Well, Suddenly struck where I hadn't even figured out an answer myself, I fell silent. Watching me, Mr. Stevenson burst into loud laughter. Just when I thought I had completely messed up, he said something unexpected. Ah, that was a mean question. I'm sorry about that. You know, I worked my way up from the bottom. I should know better than anyone that you can't measure a person's ability by a single metric, or at least, I thought I did. Mr. Stevenson continued, his brows lowered slightly. I was desperate to protect this company, to win. But somewhere along the way, I lost my way. I'd been pushing you too hard, Rachel. I knew you were working hard for the company, Dad. I just wanted you to praise me, even a little bit. That's all. Rachel faced her father head-on. It was probably the first time she had ever expressed her feelings. Clenching her fists, she still looked straight ahead with determination. I also turned to Mr. Stevenson. So, Rachel has finally found someone who can appreciate her. For the first time, Mr. Stevenson smiled gently as he looked at me. Rachel, however, turned bright red, flustered and panicking. Well, Eric is, someone who notices things, you know? He noticed you, didn't he? Yeah. After looking at Rachel with a mix of sadness and happiness, the kind of face only a father could make, Mr. Stevenson turned to me. Eric, I appreciate you. Not just for Rachel, but for reminding me of the passion I seem to have forgotten. No, it's nothing. Actually, I already knew about you. Some time ago, I received an excellent marketing report. When I asked who had prepared it, they told me it was Eric from the sales department. I thought for sure it was Sean, but it was you, wasn't it, Eric? I couldn't answer. But sensing something, Mr. Stevenson didn't press me any further. Instead, he turned decisively to face Rachel. Rachel, you know we're launching a new business project, right? I want you to work on it together with Eric. I'm not saying this because we're family. This is about the trust one have in both of you. Father, no, Mr. Stevenson. Thank you so much. I'll do my very best. Holding back tears, Rachel stood and bowed deeply. I also bowed as hard as I could. Thank you very much. Just when it felt like everything was progressing smoothly, there was a knock at the door, and a woman who appeared to be the secretary walked in. She turned not to Mr. Stevenson, but to me, and began speaking. After hearing the message, I hurried out of the room and powered on my company cell phone. Rachel came out after me. The message had been from my brother. When I called him back, he picked up amid some background noise. Eric, are you in the middle of a meeting? Can you talk now? I'm fine. What happened? There's been a double booking. You know that old client of yours? The negotiation for the new plan apparently was scheduled for today. What? No, I thought we were still finalizing the date. It was completely out of the blue. It was true I had discussed the plan with the long-standing client I had always been in charge of. But we had agreed to finalize the schedule after the busy season ended. Damn it, we've already got a meeting with a new client today too, but they specifically requested you, Eric. Geez. I'll call them right now. I'll apologize and try to reschedule. I won't cause trouble for you, I promise. Eric. My brother called my name, as if he had seen right through me, his voice carrying a slight chuckle. Then he said, "Leave it to me." Then, the call abruptly ended. Rachel, who had been standing nearby, had apparently heard everything. As soon as I closed my phone, she questioned me with a puzzled expression. Hey, I don't mean to sound rude, but Sean didn't set this up, did he? What? I mean, come on. Scheduling something without telling you? It doesn't make sense. And canceling on you and putting you in this situation feels like he's using you, Eric. That's how it looks to me. I understood exactly what Rachel meant. She was the only one who knew about my past, how I felt about my brother, and my position in the company. It wasn't surprising she would see my brother as the bad guy. Thanks, Rachel. I appreciate you worrying about me. Honestly, I don't know why this happened either. But he's got this under control. And how can you say that so confidently? I placed a hand on her shoulder and, as if to convince myself, said, "Because he's my brother." With that, I returned to the meeting room. Was there some trouble? Apologies. I just needed to confirm something. There's no problem now. Despite Rachel's worried face, mine felt surprisingly calm, even to myself. I had no doubts about trusting my brother. After that, we finalized the general business details and discussed future developments, successfully securing a follow-up meeting. By then, about 2 hours had passed since that phone call. As we left Stevenson Holdings and the building disappeared from view, Rachel's patience finally burst. Come on, turn your phone on. Shack it. What if something happened to you? Okay, don't look at me like that. While glancing nervously between Rachel and my phone, I called my brother. Hello? Bro? Great timing. I just wrapped it up. Nailed it. Thanks, really, thank you, brother. I told you to leave it to me, didn't I? Oh, hey, is Rachel there? Can you put me on speaker? Confused as to why this couldn't wait until I got home, I put the phone on speaker. Hello, this is Rachel. Sean, you're going to explain, right? Yeah. I figured you'd be mad, Rachel. Listen up, Eric, you too. About the scheduling thing, apparently. A new kid got us mixed up and told me instead of you. They wrote it on a sticky note and stuck it on my desk, but I went straight home that day. And wouldn't you know it, the note fell off and disappeared. Total miscommunication. Though I can't say I'm blameless. I should have double-checked the next day. Brother? I told you to leave it to me, but it turned into cleaning up my own mess. So don't worry, Eric, you didn't do anything wrong. Even though it was on speaker, Rachel grabbed the phone and spoke sharply. And? What about the contract? I went to both. In times like these, honesty works best. They understood the situation. Actually, they were pretty amused by the whole twin thing. And we had a good laugh about it. Then I rushed over to the other company. No way. As long as I can make it on time, everything's fine, right? Besides, I had the best presentation materials with me. There was a slight pause before my brother spoke again, addressing me directly. Eric, things went well on your end too, right? Yeah. I've always thought you were more comfortable in quiet spaces. You're smart, but when you overthink things, you make small mistakes. Like spelling errors and stuff. Ha ha. I figured the best way to showcase your talent was for me to spread the word about you in sales. But you don't have to think about doing things for my sake anymore. Eric, you should do what you want to do. Hearing those words, I felt like all the tension drained from my body. My brother had noticed everything all along. He had been waiting patiently for me to come to terms with my own feelings. Tears began to fall naturally. Rachel didn't say a word, simply placing a comforting hand on my back. Brother, do you think I can do it? At my muttered comment, my brother burst into loud laughter. What's with the weak attitude? You're already getting cozy with a colleague before me. What? Rachel and I raised our voices at the same time, stunned by his sudden remark. What, you thought I wouldn't notice? I had a feeling you two were close, so I managed to switch the business trip with you. Did anything happen? Before he could even finish, Rachel, her face bright red, ended the call. Rachel? Eric, your brother may be called perfect, but he has zero tact. Why are you angry now? Because. This is just a general opinion. Blushing furiously and waving my phone around, she stomped off toward the station. Watching her, I touched my own cheeks. I must have been just as red. When we returned to the office, everyone greeted us with bright smiles. Rachel, being showered with unreserved praise, looked embarrassed but undeniably happy. Watching her, I couldn't help but smile, feeling confident that she would leave her old self behind and grow stronger. From now on, I'd probably get to see that adorable smile of hers every day. While I stood a bit apart from the group, a few women cautiously approached me. You're Eric, right? Yeah, that's me. The moment I answered, an unexpected chorus of excited squeals erupted. No way. Why haven't you been showing your face more often? You're like a totally different kind of handsome than Sean. You need to keep this look for work. Well, this is just by chance. Flustered by the unfamiliar situation, I was saved when someone suddenly grabbed my arm. Of course, he's my little brother, isn't he? You guys are late to the party. Eric, come with me for a sec. Okay. Letting Sean pull me along, I followed him out of the office. In the hallway, away from prying eyes, Rachel was already waiting. Rachel, here you go. Got him right here. Thanks. While I stood there, still confused, Rachel turned toward Sean and bowed deeply. Sean, I'm sorry. I accused you of using Eric and jumped to conclusions. Don't worry about it. It's true I relied on Eric a lot. Brother. Sean let out a small sigh and smiled at the two of us, hands on his hips. Well, that all ends today, or maybe it's just the beginning. Before things get too busy, let's clear the air once and for all. With that, Sean turned on his heel and returned to the office. Confused, Rachel and I exchanged glances before following him. The office was still buzzing with excitement. Sean clapped his hands loudly, instantly grabbing everyone's attention. All eyes turned to us. I've got an announcement for everyone. I've already spoken to Robert, but Eric will now be stepping up as a full-fledged salesman. I can vouch for his skills. After all, he's the one who's been preparing all my sales materials up until now. Brother? The buzzing in the room turned to murmurs of surprise. I froze, completely thrown off by my brother's sudden confession. But beside me, Rachel remained calm. She gently squeezed my hand and smiled at me. Sean, grinning, continued speaking to the group. I owe an apology to those who thought I was doing it all myself. Sorry about that. But this marks the end of our brotherly teamwork. From now on, we're rivals. Sure, Eric's got better marketing skills, but there's no way I'm losing when it comes to sales talk. He pointed sharply at me, grinning like he always does, and just like that, the mood in the office lifted again. Moments like this reminded me how incredible my brother truly was and how much I admired him. I won't lose. Sean leaned in close and whispered in my ear. At that moment, I couldn't help but think, I'll never truly beat him. After work that day, I spent some time talking with Rachel in the office. Hey, what did Sean say to you at the end? Nothing in particular. Rachel narrowed her eyes, tapping my cheek with the coffee she'd bought, her gaze practically demanding an answer. Sighing in defeat, I finally relented. He said he'd look the other way if I spent extra time helping her out. Ha! An awkward silence settled between us. Being twins, I understood exactly what my brother had meant. And truthfully, I wanted to do just that. It was now or never. Rachel. What is it? I think the reason I could step onto this new path is thanks to my brother. He helped shake me out of the way I'd been stuck thinking. Yeah. But the person who made me feel like it was okay to be who I am, that was you, Rachel. I want you to stay by my side from now on. Eric, are you saying? Yes. I'm asking you to be my girlfriend. Summoning all the courage I had, I finally said it. Rachel lowered her head slightly, stepped closer, and intertwined her fingers with mine, gripping my hand tightly. Say it a little more clearly, please. Blushing and pouting just slightly, she looked up at me, waiting for my words. I gently pulled her closer and said, I love you, Rachel. More. I thought you were beautiful the first time I saw you. More. Ha ha. In the empty office, laughter echoed alongside our silhouettes, which lingered even as the moment passed. 2 months later. My desk was still by the window. But unlike before, I hardly ever sat there. Nowadays, I spent most of my time carrying presentation materials and hopping between clients. My desk stayed in its place thanks to Sean's thoughtful consideration. Eric, you do better where you're comfortable. Once you get the hang of it, you can change things up. Every time Sean gave me advice like this, I got teased by the others with big brother this, big brother that. Since becoming a salesman, I'd been constantly amazed by my brother's natural ability to win people over. I still had a lot to learn, but I discovered the satisfaction of earning trust through my own efforts. Eric, call on line 4. Sounds promising, by the way. Thanks. Hello, Eric speaking. Thank you for calling. I scheduled the next meeting and hung up the phone. When I looked up, my brother and Rachel were standing beside me. Eric. Looks like everything's going smoothly. How's sales treating you? I'm still not on your level yet, but yeah, I'm enjoying it. Hearing that, Sean beamed and gave me several hard pats on the back. Rachel, on the other hand, was staring at him with an unamused glare. Rachel? Did something happen? Eric. I'm doing my best too, you know? So why is Sean still the top salesman? I tried to calm her down, but Sean, crossing his arms and looking her dead in the eye, casually dropped a bombshell. Well, that's because you're too busy being head over heels for my little brother. You've got to separate work and romance, you know. What? As Sean walked away laughing, Rachel, still red-faced, glared at his back. But suddenly, her shoulders slumped and she sank to the floor. Rachel, you can't take my brother's teasing seriously. When I said that, Rachel looked up at me with teary eyes and murmured softly, "But I am your girlfriend." I nearly pulled her into a hug right then and there but managed to restrain myself. Instead, I gently patted her head, making sure no one was watching. "I'm here for you, always. Okay." Smiling sweetly, she reached for my hand as I helped her up. Just then. See? That's exactly what I mean. At my brother's teasing from afar, Rachel suddenly stood up and planted her feet firmly, almost like a statue. Then, without missing a beat, she marched straight back to her desk. As I watched her retreating figure, I finished getting ready for my own sales visit and stood up from my desk. "Eric, good luck out there. Eric, bring it home." Hearing the encouraging voices of the two people I cared about most, I turned and smiled at them. "I'm off." For so long, I had been using that day, the day of the accident, as an excuse to stand still. Maybe Rachel had been doing the same. After all, it's easier to let yourself be carried by convenient reasons than to face the effort of moving forward. But this is my life. I have no choice but to accept everything and move forward. Through struggles, with support, and by overcoming each challenge, the burdens on my shoulders will gradually lighten. Someday, a day will surely come when I can smile truly and freely.